I want to give you a special caution in life, a life lesson that I learned a long time ago. It's this: don't make long-term decisions based on short-term struggles. Let me tell you a quick story that illustrates this. So not long ago, I was talking to a 13-year-old who had just 2 or 3 days ago started track practice. Now, I know this 13-year-old is tall and lanky and has been running all his life. Now, from my years of hanging around track and running track, what I've learned is those who are tall and lanky tend to do not that well at sprints. They tend to do a lot better at distance races. Now, there are definitely exceptions, like the world's record holder in the 100-meter dash is tall and lanky, and I understand that. But just looking at high school students and the kind of thing, and junior high school students, what they do, what they tend to be good at, that tends to do. And so we were talking, and he was telling me, I said, what races are you thinking of? And he says, I've been thinking of running the 100-meter and the 100-meter hurdles and this and that, and they were all short distance. And I said, have you thought about doing the long distance races? And he said, yeah, but I get tired running those. Those are a long way. And I had to laugh because I remember back to my 7th grade year when I first started running track. And I was 6'4". I weighed about 110 pounds. And that first year, I didn't have the wind necessary to go out and run the half-mile and mile races and those kinds of things like that. So I ran the 100-meter dash and not only never won a race, never came in in the top 6 running a race. I just couldn't get my body out of the blocks and start running. Once I got out of the blocks and started running, I ran just as fast as everybody else. It's just that coordination, getting out of those blocks and getting going was just too much for my body. And I never succeeded. Well, I had a friend who ran distance. He loved to run. And so at the end of the day, after we'd run miles and miles in practice, he'd call me up and say, hey, let's go running. And it's like, are you nuts? And when we'd go up in the mountain, we'd run for, I don't know, a couple more hours. And so I'd probably put on 5 or 10 more miles a night just out running. And at the end of the year, I was a distance runner. So the next year I ran the mile. And so I went from running the 100-meter to running the mile. And once I started running the mile, I almost never lost a race. It's just what happens. So here's the thing. This 13-year-old that I'm talking to, he's making not an irredeemable, irreconcilable decision based upon short-term struggles, but he's sort of making he's going to spend a year running short distances when he may be better suited for running long distance because he's struggling with the wind. And that's true. That happens with all of us. Struggles are real, and struggles often take time to get ourselves through. And then once we're through them, then we're prepared to be able to deal with that struggle. So he will, during this year, run a lot of short distance races, and he'll get better and better, and he'll get more and more capacity to run. And my guess is next year he'll probably be running the half-mile race. So there's lots of places where this applies. Personal life. The best example of not making long-term decisions based upon short-term struggles is marriage, right? How many of us who've been involved in a marriage have had short-term struggles? We all do. And you have to be careful. Don't make a long-term decision based upon that. Hey, career. We all get a boss that we don't like. We all get an assignment that we don't like. We all get put into, maybe we are in the right field, but we're in the wrong company, or we're in the right field, but we're in the wrong job title at the moment, or we're in the right field, but we're at the beginning functions of that. I remember when I was an associate brand manager, it's like, I was miserable. I was doing all this stuff that is like, I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. And 3 years later, I was doing what I wanted to do for the rest of my life until I decided I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. Okay, our spiritual life. Oftentimes we'll have a spiritual struggle. And so many people during this point of time, it's like, I don't believe in God anymore, or I'm going to leave this church and go off to this church. Just be careful. Business. When we look at business, there's a lot of examples of short-term struggles that create long-term decisions. So, hey, probably the biggest one is whether to be in business for yourself at all. And this one right here, I see people make all the time. It's like, I'm struggling. I can't seem to bring in enough money. And they're getting pressure from their family. Understandable. And sometimes they make a decision. Some of the very best potential business people quit and go back and get a job because they can't push through that short-term struggle. Niche. I can't seem to build my list. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that your niche is wrong. It might mean that what you're offering them for free in exchange for giving their email list isn't the right thing. Or it may be that your landing page is bad. Or maybe there's all kinds of reasons why you may be having the struggle that don't mean you shouldn't be in that niche. It means you haven't done the right thing to operate within that niche. I'm going to say that again. The fact that you're not getting the results you want does not necessarily mean that that's not the right thing for you. It might mean you're just not doing the right things yet. So the solution is not to quit. It's to change what you're doing so that you can get success in that niche. How about this one? Your go-to-market strategy, webinars, launches, e-commerce, whatever it is. Don't quit because it's just not working quite yet. What about your offer? You may say, oh, this product's a failure because it's not selling well. Well, once again, it may not be that the product is a failure. It might be that the thing you're doing to market it, you haven't honed in on that. You're not doing it right yet. The type of business. So am I going to be in online? Am I going to be in coaching? Am I going to be in-person retail? Am I going to, there's so many different choices. So when it really comes down to it, when you look at these things, I strongly believe in this axiom. It's always hard until it becomes easy. Have you ever had anything in your life that was easy from day one? Now, there are a few blessed people who that happens to. Then they tend to flame out later on because they never had any difficulty. But it's always hard until it becomes easy. And then what ends up happening, and then hard changes. It's a new kind of hard. Think about life. We go through all these years of struggling to put money away, struggling to raise our kids, struggling to pay for college, struggling to all these things. And then suddenly we get to the point where it's like, okay, now I get to retire. Yay, it's going to be easy. And then we get health difficulties, and then we get maybe money difficulties and relationship difficulties. It's like, it's always hard until it becomes easy, and then it gets hard again. And hard just always changes. This whole concept, this belief that it is possible to have a life without hardness, it's not there. That's life. You'll always have struggles of some kind or another. So don't give up when you don't have to. Think about, instead of giving up when you don't have to, start thinking, am I doing the right things to succeed? As opposed to, should I just quit? That's my encouragement to you, because almost everybody I talk to who is struggling not because they're in the wrong business, but because they're not yet doing the right things in the right way to succeed. Shift that, what you're doing, how you're doing it, as opposed to quitting. What's your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.